I've recently been wanting to start a new side project, and these are the goals I set out in front of me for this side project. The first one being potential to be large, but it doesn't really need to be. No finish line. There's not really an end to this project, and I want it to be nice and visual and have a good UI and everything. But I'm not making a website. I'm tired of making websites. I'm not doing it anymore. And the first thing that came to mind was making a video game, and I hate making video games.
God damn this fucking hellhole. I hate this fucking house. I hate everything about this fucking place.
I don't like dealing with animations, sound design, art, all that nonsense. I just want to code. But I still want to use a game engine because they're really easy to get all of the visual stuff going. And what really came to mind was, I recently started getting into fish tank keeping and the aquarium hobby, and I love it. I love watching the little fishies and the shrimps and watching them grow and just have an environment. So I decided to land on an environment/evolution simulator. An evolution simulator meets these goals because there's no finish line to simulating evolution. There's always new traits, always new creatures, always new environments to add. And this goes really good into a game engine and have a visual aspect because we can watch the creatures move around and visually see how they change over time and evolve. Now for a simulation, I chose to use Godot as the game engine. It's not really important why, but yeah, Godot was the winner. Now, what do we need for a simulation? The two things we need are a world. So right now we're starting very basic, just a gray square, which our creatures will live on. And that also means the second thing we need is a creature. So these things are called moats and...
Today. Oh my God, what is that? Oh my God, what is that?
Yeah, moat just means like particle or stupid little rat or whatever the definition is. I need a new name though, so help, please. But look at this handsome fella. Not ugly and stupid at all. And one interesting thing is the collision shape is actually a circle because it makes it helps with collision. If you've ever made games before, you know to use like circles and capsules as collisions and less like squares and rectangles and stuff. But anyway, so first thing we need to do is to get this fella moving. Now, looking at the code, we can see how the moat moves. It might look a little complicated, but it's not really. Basically, every frame of the simulation, the moat, if it doesn't have any goals, in the future we'll have goals of like search out food and water and all that. But for now, it's just aimlessly wandering around. So every frame, it checks it. So first, to start, it picks a random position, and then every frame, it checks if it's at that position. If it's not, keep going to that position. And it just goes, once it reaches its target position, pick a new position, and it's just very basic, just aimlessly wandering. Now we can run this, and we can see what it looks like when a moat runs around in our environment. So to get a moat running around, we can go to our scenes, our moat scene, and we can just drag the fella in and start. And you can see he just runs around aimlessly. Now in the top left, you can see we have ticks moving. Ticks is just the way to run the simulation. So one tick is every X amount of seconds. I think right now it's every half a second. And that'll be when things happen in the simulation. So instead of most things, like movement, you want to happen per frame. But most things in the simulation and games in general, you want to happen on a tick. So every half a second is when things will happen. And you can see he kind of just walks around. He goes forward, turns to a new direction, and yeah, he just kind of runs around. Pretty boring. Now, to start making things more interesting in our simulation, we need a sim manager script. And this is essentially how we play God. To start very basic in the simulation, in the sim manager, we have, I'm not going to go through all the code, but basically right now, we randomly spawn a moat in the world every single tick right now. And then also, so that's life. The two most important things to get started for the simulation is life and death. Now we got life where moats just spontaneously spawn from the sim manager. And now every frame, what we can do is the moat death chance. We can set this to 0.05, which means 5%. Now, if we run the simulation, every single frame, a moat will spawn. And then every single, every tick a moat will spawn, and then every tick, every moat has a 5% chance to just die. So as you can see, all of the moats just run around. You can see in the top left how many ticks, what tick we're on, the current average moats per tick. And we can speed things up, and you can see they just spawn and run around and die. So now we're starting to get somewhere. We have the circle of life. We have life and death going. Now, at a first thought, it might not seem very interesting, but just having the simple life and death percentage chances, we can actually already kind of view some interesting data. So to view this data, we have our sim manager write to a JSON file, which just records all relevant data about the simulation. And for now, it's just how many moats are alive per tick. Now, to view this data, I threw together a quick web app to graph all of the data we can find. So what we can do is we can do choose file, we can choose our run. I've already ran a bunch of runs when testing, and we can open it, and we can see it graphs the moat population over time. So what we see here is our x-axis is time in ticks, and then our y-axis is number of moats. So as you can see, we obviously start out at 0 moats, and then we go up, and then we kind of die, and it kind of like evens out here. We have our average in green. You can see the average moats for this run, which was 500 ticks, is about 20.262 moats per tick. Now, this isn't the most interesting thing, as you know, because when we're dealing with this kind of thing, you want multiple points of sample data. Now, to get more data, we just choose files again on the web app, drag in theory as much as we want, and we are now graphing tons of data across 8 different runs here. We can see the white line, so all of the colored lines are just the data for different runs. The white line is the average for each tick across all the runs, so we can kind of smooth out what we're seeing here instead of all this random stuff. And then the green line is the full average, so the average of every tick across every run. And what you can see here is our average is 20, and you can see with the white line, the average for each tick it's kind of like breathing, and it's not, we're dealing with random chance of moats having a 5% chance of death and everything. So it's not a perfectly straight line, but you can see we're kind of just going around the 20 mark here. And we can actually, this is not a coincidence, we can actually predict this 20 number. Now, to predict where the population will stabilize, we can calculate what's called the equilibrium. To do that, we just divide the birth rate by the death rate. In our example, one new creature or moat spawned every single tick, and so 100% chance, and each creature has a 5% chance of dying. So our equilibrium is 1 divided by 0.05, which gives us 20. This makes sense because each creature independently has a 5% chance of dying. So with 20 creatures, we'd expect 20 times 0.05, or exactly 1 death per tick on average, canceling out our each new birth. So basically, what that means is our 20 is where the new tick, for each tick, a new moat spawns. How many moats do we need in our world to kind of cancel that out? And on average, it's 20, because like I said, each moat has a 5% chance of dying every tick. So you would expect there needs to be roughly 20 moats, because 20 moats times 5% chance of dying is 100. So you would expect there needs to be roughly 20 moats to essentially, theoretically, guarantee 1 moat dies per tick to cancel out the birth, which is where we get this equilibrium 20. Now, obviously, there's a lot of varying, but this is an average. This is why we have all of these data points, to be able to get these averages and find these values, because having a single run doesn't really prove anything. Like up here, we're getting to like close to 30 moats, and then down here, it's a little hard to see in the video, but we're getting down to 10 moats. So obviously, we're not always going to be at 20, but with the averages, you can tell we've successfully predicted that with these values, we will average roughly 20 moats per tick. Now, if you want a better or more in-depth explanation of the equilibrium and why this kind of all makes sense, I would highly suggest watching Primer's video on this. He did a great job explaining everything, and yeah, I'll link the video. But yeah, I highly recommend if you're curious more about why this equilibrium works and stuff. He does a great job explaining it. That's about it that I have for the simulation. I appreciate anyone who watched. I'm definitely excited to continue this project. I have lots of ideas for traits to add to the moats, maybe new creatures, have things for the moats to do besides just wander around, like forage for food, survive environments, drink water, avoid predators. It's truly infinite. So if you have any ideas for things to add, I greatly appreciate it. If you have a better name than just moat for these little creatures, that'd be great too. But yeah, I appreciate anyone for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one, hopefully. I'm editing the video now, and I just realized my dumbass never once said the name of the project through the whole video. So the project is called Vivarium. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.